Good morning, everyone. Need to get organized here. I do have an overhead. We'll just see if it goes on here. There we go. Just wanted to set that up. Is the mics okay, or you can hear me?
It's okay, yeah.
Okay, good. I'll just yell if we need to. Wanted to spend some time. It's been a couple of months since I've seen you guys, and obviously the last month when I was planning to do this sermon wasn't a good opportunity, and I prayed about it and actually talked to Paul and Pastor Bob was gone. I talked to Paul by email, and we sort of felt that I was supposed to be where I was supposed to be. I was at the hospital beside. So did, and that was a very special experience. I probably will talk about that in the coming months. I'm going to process that a little bit. But I wanted to wear her favorite color today, because pink was her favorite color. It's funny that I would wear this shirt. I didn't like it when I first bought it, and it seemed to grow on me. But it was her favorite color, and we were there. And I wanted to spend time with you and be here also because your cards meant a lot to our family. And just being here is because she was part of this fellowship, and I just thought I'd, share that with you. And I will speak obviously on that, and I'll just say that our life, and our death, it's all part of God's plan, and it's a very beautiful experience to see someone kind of pass into Father's hands, which I never thought that would be the case to say that. So that's not the sermon today, but I wanted to fill you in because, it's fresh in my mind. And just that we have such a great hope. And we're not empty. We're not clueless. We're not lost. It's such a nice feeling. And the sermon today is about money. And that was a big topic that my mom taught me how to spend money, how to save money, a good steward of money. And I learned a lot of things from my mom, but this is one really central key thing about life that she taught. And I was very grateful for her, and we'll go into a little more detail later. This is still part of the OFW series. We've got a few Filipinos here, not including my family. But I talked to Pastor Paul, and he said this is a topic that we can pray for in terms of them being in the country, being outside of their comfort zone, and to continue these series, even though you're not Filipino. I'm not Filipino, but these are, things that we can think about and pray for them as they deal with. And specifically, money is a big topic. It's a big thing to go from earning pesos to earning dollars. The exchange rate's 40-something now. So you're kind of going from this poverty stage to, riches in terms of even just the spending power. And what do you do with that type of wealth or that type of, pickup or that luckiness or whatever, and just to be a good steward with that. So I thought I'd talk about money in this series. So the first graph I've got here just shows you sort of the OFWs kind of between 2001 to 2007. The idea here is that it's actually growing, that there's exporting more Filipinos out of the Philippines. And the red bar is actually professional services. So, as time goes on, there's actually more smarts are coming out of the Philippines, which is kind of interesting into the different countries of the world. The next graph I pulled up is actually a chart. You can't really see that, but it says here the places of work of the Filipinos. And 78% is actually in Asia. Kind of no shock, I guess, because it's really close to home. That's probably Singapore, Hong Kong, places like that. A little sliver is Australia, Europe is 10%, and North and South America is 8%, which I thought would be a little bit higher, but interesting nonetheless. And we see Filipinos everywhere, so it is and they're sort of out there and blessing the world, as it were, because I think Filipinos are wonderful, especially in hospitals and stuff, and Tim Hortons, I suppose. I make a comment because you can go to Starbucks. I love Starbucks. And, they don't hire Filipinos as a rule, I guess, or even outsource them. It's basically local. And the lineups are long, and a lot of times it's not quick. And you go to a Tim Hortons, and it's amazing how fast and efficient, and, it's a pleasure to go to Tim Hortons, one of the busy ones. and they have, the Filipinos running all over the place, and it's very neat to see. You guys really work well together, and it's anyway, that wasn't part of the sermon, but it's coffee, and that's important. So I've got a little slide here also discussing, and I don't know where this was, some people protesting, but it says, because we are worth more than the dollars we send. And this is probably a march on somewhere, like a protest or something, even to the government or whatever. But it hits a chord too, even with my family, in terms of like, the money you spend, yeah, you're making dollars now, but your family back home is expecting you to give those dollars to you because now you're rich. And it's like, well, actually it's more than that, We're over here in a foreign country, we're trying to get the family over here. Our money that we're making looks like it's a lot, but we have, payments here for car, insurance, gas. Heating is a very expensive cost here. So just that whole idea that, pushing back to the family saying, hey, like, I'm living here and this is difficult for me. And that's something that us vanilla folks don't really understand, but sending money back is very important and part of the family, It is sort of it's not even a ritual, it's required, like it's something. So I really wanted to spend a bit of time expressing that kind of, budgeting or that money view. And we'll take a look at what the Bible has to say about money, being a wise steward of money. But that, predicament that the Filipinos are in where they've got, a lot more spending power and what to do with that. So I've got a little bit of a piggy here, piggy bank. I don't know if anybody puts money in piggy banks anymore. We had one for Jacob, and we quickly pulled out the bottom and spent it all. It's got the piggy, but no money in there. Yeah? Anyway, so coins. But number one I wanted to mention is to pray for your finances. Like, this is something that seems, oh yeah, we're Christians, we should do that. But do we bring our money and our needs and our wealth or whatever, our spending power to God and say, hey, can you bless me with this? Because I need to understand how to be a good steward with what I've been given. I'll give you a personal story of mine. I had a coworker, we both worked at TELUS for 5 years. Since not worked at TELUS, but he still works there. But we started around the same time, and we had the opportunity to get involved with what's called a stock plan. So you buy certain portions, and then the company would match, and away you go. So basically, him and I had the same opportunity, same salary, same everything. To cut a long story short, I made 4 times as much money in that scheme that he did. And I talked to Gene Schmalar, because I do a lot, over coffee, and I said, was I just lucky? Like, did I just, happen to buy into the program when TELUS stock went up, or, and then he had some, other choices he made and stuff like that. And Gene's comment was, no, I think God blessed you. And I stopped and I thought, God blessed me? Like, I guess, maybe. But I said I did pray about it before I put in this thing, and I kept praying about, my finances situation. And I know my friend didn't, so possibly. I think that's a good example that God could take, that portion of your life and bless it and increase it and whatever. So I wasn't just lucky. He blessed me, and I thought that was kind of neat. So on to kind of the idea of budgeting as a whole. I've heard the idea that you pay yourself first, and that's in terms of RSPs or retirement or things like that off the top. Along with that goes like a rainy day account for emergencies or tithing. You're supposed to put that off the first fruits, and we'll talk about that in Scripture, where God wanted that off the top. So when you get paid, you pay those things. Then you budgeting, and I put this as a line item, to bring your family over to Canada. So, in terms of trying to put your family here, because that's important to have your family here, and put that in a budgeting line item so that you can have them here. And the last item is also, obviously, spending for your rent and your bills and stuff. Don't ignore that. And the last item is sending money to the Philippines. So that's sort of an idea, my opinion anyway, of how you can spend your money. But again, praying for these type of situations or what to do with your money and what you've got. I've got a story about my mom. She bought a condo, and this is quite fantastic. We talked about it at the memorial service. She made $28,000 a year. So that's not really a lot of money in terms. I think the average is probably 50 now or 45 or something. So 28,000 is really, really below, you know. So she was able to save up and actually buy a condo downtown Edmonton, and within 15 years pay it off, which is remarkable that she was able to do something like that. And kudos to her for doing this. So when I say in terms of learn money things from my mom, she had a lot of neat things that she did, you know, in terms of budgeting, paying yourself first, putting stuff into RSPs. But she'd always bring it back to God, and she prayed about these things. And she'd even, you know, ask us to pray for it in terms when she was looking for a condo. So I just wanted to put that out there, and it's an important thing to do is to look at these things, but to, you know, bring God into the decision. Let's take a look at the biblical view of money. So we'll go through some scriptures. Believe it or not, the Bible talks a lot about money, a lot more than we think about. And it's a topic that we don't preach much about, but God is very interested in money. And even, you know, what we do with our money and what we do with what he's given us. So tip number 1, God creates wealth. It mentions here in Deuteronomy 8:18, remember the Lord your God, for it is he who giveth the ability to produce wealth. So we find that in the Old Testament, but it's true of the whole Bible that he allows us to produce wealth. Another tip here is to give thanks. We're supposed to give thanks about all things, but in riches, right? So as the topic says here, feeling rich, give thanks to God. So we find in Jeremiah 9:23. This is what the Lord says, let not the wise man boast of the wisdom, or the strong man boast of strength, or the rich man boast of riches. But let him who boasts about this, that he understands and knows me, that I am the Lord who exercise kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. The idea here is giving thanks for what God has given you. The third tip is saving for Jacob. Here's a little shot of Jacob there. I thought that was kind of funny. Saving for the kids. Obviously, tip number 3, save for your kids' inheritance. I'm going to pull out something from Proverbs at 13:22 that says, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. So the Proverbs pulls out not only to save for your children, but your children's children. So I should be thinking along the lines of Jacob's children, which is quite a lot of forethought, but the Bible is mentioning that that's important, and that's where we should spend our time. Get out of debt, another cutting the credit cards, you know, this is the idea here. Get out of debt to be free. It mentions in Proverbs 22 here, the poor are always ruled over by the rich, so don't borrow and put yourself under their power. And Proverbs has a lot to say about money, and these are great little tidbits, but that's one of them for sure. The next tip is guard against greed. Here's a picture that I got on the internet, and it says, greed is cancer. And I love this graphic. Well, not really, but the idea here that greed, and talking about money being greed, and the idea here is to guard against greed. And we find in Luke 12:15, he says, then Jesus said to them, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. A man's life does not consist of the abundance, or the abundance of his possessions. And, you know, Jesus is pushing quite close into a lot of the, you know, even when they said to the disciples, leave everything and follow me. This idea that, you know, are those important to you? Well, you can't have faith. You can't have the walk with me. And so that's really, really important to consider in terms of money, obviously, because we're always, you know, think of money and greedy money or whatever. But God is, or Jesus was talking specifically about, you know, wanting your heart and, you know, not just about money. Here's another comment here, is money evil? You know, a lot of people think money is evil, it's terrible. And yeah, it probably, you know, a lot of times it does have a lot of problems. But tip number 6 says, remember that money isn't evil, but loving it is. Well, the Bible mentions here, for the love of money is the root of all evil. And some people, by loving it, have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. Here is a real warning scripture to say, you know, where is our values? Like, what are we valuing? Is it money? Is it possessions? Will that cost your faith? And I have a question here. Would you rather have, number 1, faith to walk on water, like what Peter, you know, come with me, or would you rather have $1 million? Think about that in your head. You know, which would you rather have? Faith that you can walk out on water and do anything, or $1 million? just let you percolate that idea for a moment. But, heed the warning that, it's about a relationship. It's not